welcome to a brand new episode of Brewing with 50 bucks. I'm Stefan, coming to you from the General Warfare headquarters, the brand new General Warfare headquarters. As you know, I moved into my new place about 2 weeks ago, and I'm still settling in. Everything's still on the floor as per usual, but nonetheless, I'm back for a new video for you guys this week. One more week until Strixhaven gets released, and for today's video, we're going to tackle one of the brand new commanders from Strixhaven that I've already mentioned in my Strixhaven video. If you haven't checked that out, it's on the top right of your screen right now. But today's commander is Rootha Mercurial Artist. So this week I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, given how crazy the last couple of weeks have been. So today's video is not exactly as organized as my previous Brewing with 50 bucks episodes are, with all the titles, all the different categories and everything like that. Hell, I didn't even make a script for this one. So this one's gonna be a little bit more broad, less broken down into subcategories, but I will be updating the deck list by the end of the week so that everything is up to speed and you'll see the entire deck list in its fully constructed version. Now, with that being said, we're gonna get into it with our commander of the week, Rootha Mercurial Chemist. Rootha is a 1/4 for 1 and is it. So 1 blue and red for a legendary orc shaman with 2, and return Rootha Mercurial Artist to its owner's hand. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. The goal of this deck is to copy a mass variety of your spells and to win with a mass amount of damage and a mass amount of copied spells and getting some mass value off these copied spells. And as always with these brews, we are limiting ourselves with a $50 budget, which includes the price of the commander, yet basic lands do not count. We're gonna get started with our instance. Again, this is not a very broken down video, so we're gonna go through each one of the instants, each one of the sorceries, each one of the categories all together. So first we have Aetherize. You get to return all attacking creatures to their owner's hands. It's great, especially when you're about to get killed by a wide army. If somebody's going extremely wide, you get to use Aetherize and bounce all of their creatures to their hand. If they're tokens, they go away. If they're other creatures, then basically you get to wipe them off the field and you don't take any damage. Next is Arcane Denial. This is one of the few counter spells we run in the deck, where you get to counter a spell and not only you, but your opponent gets to draw cards as well. Next we have Capsize, which is always a great blue card to run, especially in a deck where you're gonna be copying a lot of the spells. With Capsize, you have a buyback ability as well, so every time you cast it, you can buy it back and it goes back to your hand. With this buyback, you get to return a target permanent to its owner's hand. Namely, if you could get infinite mana off this deck, basically you're in the goal to bounce every single permanent on the board. Next we have Chemist's Insight, where it's draw 2 cards and you get to jumpstart it. So you get to play this twice in the same game if you so desire. You pay 4 mana to draw 2 extra cards, getting more value off your opponents. Then at a later point in time, you get to cast the card from your graveyard by discarding a card and paying the mana cost as well. Next we have Counterflux, which is an uncounterable counter spell, and you get to overload it, so you get to effectively counter every single spell that has been played that turn. Next we have the original, the OG counter spell, which for 2 blue, you get to counter a target spell. What more do you want to ask for? Next we have Expansion Explosion. So Expansion is you get to copy a target instant or sorcery with converted mana cost 4 or less, and you get to choose new copies for it. So that is just an extra copy card, but Explosion is you get to deal X damage to any target, and that target draws X cards. So this is effectively a copy spell and one of our main win cons. With this, you get to either copy lower converted mana cost spells that you're playing, or you get to completely wipe somebody off the face of the game, or just deck somebody out entirely. Next, we're running Fact or Fiction. Always a blue staple card. You get to reveal the top 5 cards, and the opponent separates them into 2 piles. You get to choose 1. It's amazing. Any player who plays a blue deck should be running this card in the deck. Next, we have Frantic Search. You get to draw 2 cards, discard 2, and then untap 3 lands. Basically, you're netting 2 cards off this for effectively 0 mana because you get to untap 3 lands. Next we have the all amazing High Tide, where until end of turn, whenever a player taps an island for mana, the island makes an additional blue. Now with this, it is a combo piece. Obviously it's a blue combo piece, especially in CDH, but in this case, if you're gonna be casting it for a million times, you get to effectively copy this so many times, making your blue mana tap for 4, 5, 8 million, depending on if you can get that many copy spells on it. But nonetheless, you're gonna be copying the spell quite a bit to draw out either those counter spells, or you're gonna be drawing out all the mana you need to finish off your opponents. Next, we have Increasing Vengeance, where you get to copy target instant or sorcery spell you control, and if it was cast from a graveyard, you copy it a second time, and you get to choose new targets for the copy. And you get to flash it back for 3 and 2 red, so it's effectively another copy spell. So you get to copy whatever your big spells are, or whatever small important spells you have, get to copy it for 2 red, and you get to play it from your graveyard at a later point in time. Next, we have Ionize, which if you've seen my Aegir deck or any of my other decks that run blue and red, I use this card religiously. Get to counter a spell and deal 2 damage to that spell's controller. I like this card a lot. It's the same converted mana cost as Rootha, but you're still countering a spell and dealing 2 extra damage. I love it because it's what both colors do best. Blue counter spells and red deals damage. Next we have Jwari Disruption, where you get to counter a target spell unless its controller pays 1. And with the flip, it turns into Jwari Ruin, which is basically tap for a blue, but it comes into play tap. So you're either getting a counter spell in your hand, or you get to flip it over for that extra blue mana if you're missing some. Next we have Negate, which is counter target non-creature spell. It's also a very staple card in blue. A lot of players run this card. I run this card a lot, especially in all my blue decks, if you haven't noticed already in all of my Brewing for 50 Bucks episodes. Nonetheless, I always like playing Negate because it's a solid card, and every blue deck basically should be playing this card. Next we have Reality Shift, where you get to exile a creature, its controller manifests the top card of their library. So you get to effectively remove a problematic creature from the game while an opponent basically just cries. Next we have Repeated Reverberation. So when you next cast an instant spell, cast a sorcery spell, or activate a loyalty ability this turn, copy the spell or ability twice. You may choose new targets. As you'll notice in this deck, there's many different copy cards and copy abilities. You want to constantly copy your spells. This is a main focus of the deck, so whenever you're doing so, you're basically going to be getting a mass amount of value off these copied spells. Next, we have Rewind. You get to counter a spell and untap up to 4 lands, so it's the exact same idea as Frantic Search, yet you get to counter a spell and untap up to 4 lands, so you're basically free counterspelling somebody. Next we have Celundi Vision, which you get to look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant or sorcery card from among them and put them into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order, and it flips into Celundi Isle. So Celundi Vision, you basically get to the value of getting an instant or sorcery into your hand at the minute drawback of revealing that card. But nonetheless, you're still basically looking through the top cards. You're getting the cards you need in your hand. Like Jwari Disruption, you get to flip it over for a blue mana if you're in desired need of a blue mana. Next, we have Snap, where you get to return a target creature to its owner's hand and untap up to 2 lands. Same idea as Rewind and Frantic Search. It's a free bow spell, effectively. And last, we have Unwind, which is Rewind, except for 1 last, you get to untap up to 3 lands. Next, we have our sorceries, and we're going to start our list off with Banefire. So for X and red, Banefire deals X damage to any target. If it's 5 or more, this spell can't be countered and the damage can't be prevented. So this is another one of our game-winning cards, game-winning spells. So you basically get to play this for a lot. You get to tap a lot of mana, and you copy this multiple times. And if you want to kill somebody outright, you choose that player for the targets, or if you want to deal mass amount of damage to other things, you get to deal that damage elsewhere. Next, we have Brass's Bounty. For each land you control, you create a treasure token. This is another really fun card, especially when you want to copy it. A lot of times you get that get the extra treasure tokens, you get an extra amount of mana at your disposal, and basically you're getting multiple amounts of mana to cast your larger spells and game-winning spells at the end of the game. Next, we are running Chain Reaction, where you get to deal X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. This is a board wipe in and of itself. There's not as many creatures in this deck. There's a lot of creatures that make other creatures, but for the most part, you're gonna be using this to board wipe your opponents if they're going wide, or if they have a big scary creature that's threatening you. Next, we're running Epic Experiment. So for X and Izzet, exile the top X cards of your library. You may cast instant and sorcery spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana cost. Then put all cards exiled this way that weren't cast into your graveyard. So with the right amount of mana, if you can get infinite mana off this, you play Epic Experiment and you basically get to play your entire deck, and you get to basically cast every spell in your deck, effectively trying to kill all your opponents with the amount of spells that you get to cast. Next, we're running Faithless Looting. It's basically a red staple. You get to draw 2 and discard 2, and you flash back for 2 in a red. Next, we're running Fiery Encore. This is a fun little storm card that I've just recently discovered, but nonetheless, you get to discard a card and draw a card. When you discard a non-land card this way, Fiery Encore deals damage equal to that card's mana value to target creature or planeswalker. And with Storm, you get to effectively board wipe all your opponents, especially if you're copying this a multitude amount of times. If you're discarding high converted mana cost or high mana valued cards, you basically get to wipe your opponent's fields. Next, we're running Invoke the Firemind. For X, blue, and red, you get to choose one. You draw X cards, or Invoke the Firemind deals X damage to any target. So this is another one of our game-winning spells. Basically, it is like Banefire, where you get to deal X damage to any target, or you get to draw X amount of cards. And if you copy it for the damage, you get to spread the damage around with the copied amount, or you get to just draw a bunch of cards and draw extra cards. Next, we're running Jaya's Immolating Inferno, X red, for legendary sorcery. So legendary sorceries mean you need to control a legendary creature or planeswalker in order to play this card. However, it deals X damage to each of up to 3 targets. So if you have enough mana and you get to copy this 3 extra times, and in a 4-player game, you're able to deal all your opponents X amount of damage. And if you have them at low enough life, you get to copy those spells and kill them off with just Jaya's Immolating Inferno. Next, we're running Mana Geyser. So for this, you get to add a red for each tap land your opponents control. This is one of the cards you are going to be copying. Not if, not may, you are going to be copying this, because you're getting mana for each tap land your opponents controls, and for the amount of copy spells that we're running in this deck, you're basically going to be copying this a multitude amount of times, getting so much red mana, being able to effectively get all the copy spells, not one, and all the mass damage spells at your disposal with the amount of mana you're making off this. Next, we're running Mind's Desire. For 4 and blue, shuffle your library, then exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost. And Storm. So this is another card with Storm, where if you have enough mana and if you've played enough spells that turn, especially with a copy, with Storm, you get to play your entire deck out for free. Next, we're running Mnemonic Deluge. This is easily the highest converted mana cost in our deck. However, it has a very sweet ability. You get to exile target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard, and you copy that card 3 times. You may cast the copies without paying the mana cost, and you exile the card. So with this, you get to cast any one of the cards I've previously listed, or I'm going to list now. Especially if you're playing this with Mana Geyser, you get to copy the spell 3 times. You're getting 3 times the amount of mana you've already made from 1, and you're easily in prime position to kill your opponents. Next, we're running Mystic Retrieval. You would get to return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand with flashback 2 in a red. You get to get one of your instant kill spells back to your hand, or one of your more valuable cards back to your hand. Past in Flames is the exact same thing, but in red, and each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback till end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to the mana cost. And it itself has flashback 4 in a red. With this, you get to replay all the cards you've played before, even if you're using this just to play High Tide, and then you get to cast this, cast High Tide from a graveyard, copy it multiple times, play Mana Geyser, copy it multiple times, yada yada yada. Basically, Casting Flames gives you the outlet to recast all the cards you've already played that turn. Next, we're playing Pirate's Prize. With this, you get to draw 2 cards and create a colorless treasure token. It's just more for the card draw and the 1 extra mana you get, but if you get to copy this, you're drawing 4 cards and getting 2 mana off it. It offsets itself a little bit. Next, we're running a Raven form. You get to exile target artifact or creature, and its controller creates a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying. You get to foretell this, which is an amazing ability from Kaldheim. Like I said with Reality Shift, you get to exile one of your opponent's more scary creatures, or in this case, you get to also exile one of their artifacts as well. And they get a burb instead of having the scariest thing on the board. Next, we're running River's Rebuke. It is Cyclonic Rift, only for 1 player, and 1 mana less from the overload cost. But you get to return all non-land permanents target player controls to their owner's hand. You copy this twice, you're basically setting your entire opponent's back so much more than you actually are going to be. And basically, you're in prime position to win on your next turn if you're not winning on that turn as it is. Next, we're playing Rousing Refrain. With this, you add 1 red for each card in target opponent's hand until end of turn. You don't lose the mana as steps and phases end. You exile it with 3 time counters on it, and it has suspend 3 for 1 and a red. So you're getting to add red for each card in your opponent's hand. You copy this, you're getting 3 times the amount of red. It's basically Jeska as well, but with suspend. Next, we're playing Spell Twine, which is an older card, but one of my favorite cards nonetheless. You get to exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard and target instant or sorcery from an opponent's graveyard. You get to copy those cards. You cast the copy if able without paying the mana cost, and you exile Spell Twine. So with Spell Twine, you get to recast a card from your graveyard, and you get to copy Spell Twine I don't know how many times. With that, you're able to get an incredible amount of value, especially getting to cast something from an opponent's graveyard as well. Next, we're running Treasure Cruise, where you get to delve, where you basically get to pitch away, exile away a couple of your cards that you no longer need to draw 3 extra cards. For effectively, if you get to do it for 1 mana, that's amazing, but you get to get the extra 3 card draw. And last, for our sorceries, we're running Volcanic Vision. You get to return a target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Volcanic Vision deals X damage equal to the card's mana value to each creature your opponent controls, and you exile Volcanic Vision. So, you cast Volcanic Vision, you basically get one of your kill spells back. Next, we're going to be taking a look at our creatures. Starting off with our Chaomancer. Whenever our Chaomancer enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So basically, you get to cast this and you get to bring something back to your hand, effectively. Next, we're running Birgi, which is one of my favorite cards from Kaldheim. If you haven't seen the Kaldheim video, go check it out right now. But whenever you cast a spell, you add red. And until end of turn, you don't lose the mana as steps and phases end. That's the most important part of this card. Now, the Horn basically is extra value. You get to discard a card and exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn, but with this deck, you're playing Birgi. And only for the first ability to cast a spell, you add a red. And so every time you cast a spell, you copy it. Whenever you're copying the spell, whenever you're casting it, you're getting the red mana. Copies, you don't cast, so you're only getting the 1 red, but it's still extra red mana. It's still extra mana for you to cast more spells. Next, we're running Dual Caster Mage. It has flash, and whenever it enters the battlefield, you copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for this copy. What more do I need to say about this? It's another copy spell, especially at flash speed. Next, we're running Etali Primal Storm. This might be a very confusing card to most of you, but the reason I'm running Etali in this deck is to exile the top card of each player's library, and you get to cast any number of them. So you're getting more value from your opponents and stealing cards from them, whereas you're also going through the top of your library as well, fishing out cards you don't need. Next, we're running Goblin Electromancer. Instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less, which is always helpful as a mana reduction. Gutter Snipe is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you deal 2 damage to each opponent. Which, whenever you're casting spells, you want to keep damaging your opponents. 2 damage over time adds up. Next, we're running Hypersonic Dragon. It has flying and haste, but the most important part of this card is you may cast sorcery spells as though it had flash. With this turns on all of your sorceries to be played at flash speed. So River's Rebuke, flash speed. Mystic Retrieval, flash speed. Mana Geyser, flash speed. Jaya's, flash speed. Faithless Looting, flash speed. Volcanic Vision, flash speed. This is a very good card to turn on all of your more important sorceries. Next, we're running Murmuring Mystic. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you create a 1/1 blue bird to illusion creature token with flying. So you're valuing off each time you cast an instant or sorcery. Naru Mina is another copy target instant or sorcery spell, and this one also has flash. It's dual caster mage, but in blue and 1 more mana, with giving your wizards +1/+1. Next, we're running Talran. Talran is another one where you get to cast and you create 2/2 blue drake tokens with flying, more flying blockers, more flying attackers. Basically, you're creating a little army. Next, we're running the Locust God. Another very questionable card, you might think, but anytime you draw a card, you create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token with flying and haste. But for the most part, you're drawing a lot of cards in this deck no matter what. So Locust God is kind of fitting in this deck. That being said, whenever he dies, you return it to the owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So Locust God keeps coming back and you get to draw a card for 2 and is it. So every time you do, you draw a card, you discard a card, you're getting an insect token to block. Next, we're running Uvilda, Dean of Perfection. Basically, I went over this in my Strixhaven video. If you haven't checked it out already, please do yourself a favor and do so. Basically, Uvilda, you get to exile an instant or sorcery card from your hand and put 3 home counters on it. And after the last home counter comes off, it costs 4 less to cast. So you can play Uvilda, but for the most part, I'd be playing the other side, Nasari, where it's solid strategy on her body. But also, Itali profits off this because this isn't like another Itali where you're stealing your opponent's top cards, and basically you're getting to profit off it, and Nasari gets to pump herself up effectively. And the last creature on our list is Young Pyromancer. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. Again, you're amassing a little army for every time you cast an instant or sorcery spell. And then for our 1 Planeswalker of the deck, we're running Ral, Storm Conduit. Basically, the reason I'm using it, it's whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 1 damage to target opponent or Planeswalker. For the +2, you're scrying 1, and the -2 is whenever you cast your next instant or sorcery spell, you copy the spell, and you can choose new targets. It has everything you really want in the card. You're damaging your opponents, you get to see the top card of your library, and you get to copy a spell for its -2. Next, we're going to take a look at our enchantments. So first off, we're looking at Arcane Melee. Instants and sorcery spells cost 2 less to cast, and basically for 4 and a blue, you're getting to reduce the effective mana cost of all of your instants and sorcery spells. Double Vision allows you to copy the first spell, instant or sorcery spell each turn. Instant and sorcery spell you cast each turn, and you get to choose new targets for the copy. Jace's Sanctum, you get a cost reduction of 1, but whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get to scry 1. Sunbird's Invocation, I'm surprised it's so low in money value. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, you get to reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the spell's mana value, and you get to cast a spell with mana value X or less from among them. This is such an amazing card. It's such a valuable card as well. It is much more mana value pricey, but is worth it, especially if you're playing very big and very high converted mana cost stuff. And last of our enchantments is Swarm Intelligence. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you can copy it. This deck is all copy spells, if you haven't noticed already. Second to last is our artifacts. First, we have Izzet Locket and Izzet Signet. These are our 2 main mana rocks. I did not have enough space to put the rest because our main focus in this deck is just instants and sorceries and copying stuff. But these are the 2 main mana rocks in this deck. Like as mentioned before, this deck will be updated by the time that this video comes out on Friday, aka today. So bear with me on this video and take a look at the deck list. It's in the show notes down below. Nonetheless, you're getting your mana value off this. Next, we have Mirari, where whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you pay 3. If you do copy that spell, you can choose new targets. Next is our Sentinel Tower. Whenever an instant or sorcery spell is cast during your turn, it deals 1 damage to any target equal to 1 plus the number of instant and sorcery spells cast before that spell this turn. So every time you're casting a spell, every single time you're doing so, it is just, you're dealing that much damage plus 1 to any target. And last is Twinning Staff. Whenever you would copy a spell 1 or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time. You may choose new targets, and for 7 and tap it, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. For 3 mana, I mean, I still like this card, even though it's a little bit, the second ability is a little overcosted. Nonetheless, 3 mana for an extra copy ability is just amazing. And in this deck, we're running 19 islands and 16 mountains. That's how I would effectively build Rootha in this deck. Like I said, this is not a very robust, this is a more robust video. I haven't had the time to properly recategorize everything, so bear with me on that. Everything will be recategorized when you look at the show notes down below on that deck list. But nonetheless, with our budget of $50 minus the basic lands and including Commander, we're looking at a total of $49 and $50. Believe it or not, this is the very first Brewing with $50 episode where the actual total of it is under the $50. But basically it's $50, it's roughly around the $50 mark, so this is easily accessible. You could easily make this deck, and 50 cents, and you're basically saving 50 cents on top of it. And if you want to add extra cards that are much more valuable, like Fierce Guardianship, like Aetherflux Reservoir, and any other card, any more expensive card for this brew, you're more than welcome to do so. This is just the limitation of our $50. And that's going to be it for today's video. I just want to let you know, and that's going to be it for today's video. I want to know from you guys, how did I do for today's video? And that's going to be it for today's video. And that's going to be it for today's video, guys. What I want to know from you guys, what do you think of this Rootha build? Do you like it? Was there some cards I missed or some cards you think of that I didn't think of? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you found enjoyment from this video, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to hit that little bell icon to be notified of every single video that comes out of the channel. And with that, we have our social medias, our Instagram, our Facebook, and our Twitter attached to the show notes of this, so feel free to check it out. Give it a like. That's how you're going to be notified sooner about every video that's going to be coming out, and if there's any changes to the schedule. Basically, go give them a follow. Give the channel a follow. I very much appreciate it. We just hit over 100 subscribers over the weekend, so once again, I've already said it on social media, but thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. To celebrate 100 subscribers, I'm letting you guys know now at this video, if you watch it to the end, I am open to suggestions for my 100 subscriber video. I want to know from you guys, what do you want to see from General Warfare? If it's another game with decks of your choice, if you want to see a Brewing with $50 episode of a commander of your choice, or if you want me to discuss War Talk video of a topic of your choice, let me know. This is the 100 subscriber video request I'm putting out to you guys. I'm gonna give you guys maybe a week, 2 weeks. Give it the most suggestions, the most likes on one suggestion is gonna get that video. So start commenting on this video, comment on the video for next week, and the week after that will be your suggestion. And until then, thank you so much for watching this video. I've been Stefan from the General Warfare, and I'll see you guys next Friday. Oh, by the way, I post every Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and every video has a premiere attached to it. So not only should you set your clocks for 11 a.m. Eastern Standard, that which would be 10 Central, 10 Central, 9 Mountain Time, and 8 Pacific, depending where you are out in the world. Set your clocks for then, because that's when a new video drops every Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every video is gonna have a premiere, so if you're subscribed to the channel, you'll be notified of the premiere start time 30 minutes beforehand. And with that being said, once again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for the 3 years of support with the 100 subscribers. I very, very much appreciate it. I am overjoyed to hear this news. I've been Stefan. I'll see you guys next Friday. Cheers, everybody.